Welcome to Chewing the Crust with me, the Pie Eating Man. Really nice to have you along. Today's our first guest on the show. We've got a guy called Steve Edney coming along. You'll find his story is really interesting. He's been through ups and downs, come out the other side, and he's an example to us all. So if you enjoy the show, please subscribe, please like it. We're in our very early stages on this channel, and everything like that you do really helps. So enjoy Steve and the chat we've had. Welcome to Chewing the Crust with the Pie Eating Man. This is the first podcast that I've recorded. This is the first podcast I've had anything to do with. And I've managed to grab somebody safe who has an idea, probably a better idea of technical specifications than I do in order to help me. So without further ado, from Carfest Fields to TV fame, Steve Edney's here, remember the name. Strictly, Blue Planet, Teletubbies 2, behind the scenes, he's seen it through. Honoured by the King in 2023, a BEM for charity. From life's big twists to things he's learned, let's hear his tale, no stone unturned. So grab a brew, pull up a chair, life's great pivots, we'll go there. With Steve Edney, my first ever guest on Chewing the Crust, is sure to impress.
Wow, what an introduction, Mark. Now, you were saying Chewing the Crust, first podcast, we're going to learn this together, we're going to explore it together. But that opening, oh my goodness, it is as if you've been doing it forever.
Thank you. Well, we met last year, and I think we connected when we met in a field in Hampshire with your wonderful family. And it's very, very kind of you to take the time to have a chat with me. And I suppose I've not really introduced what I've invited you for, or who I am, or what I do. So my name's Mark Grimes, and I refer to myself as the Pie Eating Man. I've written a book which is not yet out on mental health, but I'm very passionate about mental health and very passionate about the lives of normal, everyday people, and the fact that the people that we walk by in the street on a daily basis, 90% of them really could be superheroes. We've all got our story to tell. We've all got our difficulties that we go through in life. And I don't like to think of striking anybody off. And you and I have talked before, and I know we've got some interesting chatting to do today, hopefully. But I just would love to talk about some of what we call life pivots. So things that have happened to you that when you think about life and you look back and you think of a day that your life changed, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them will benefit you, some of them will make your life a challenge. But and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, Steve, if that's possible.
Oh, it certainly is, Mark. And I remember, that instant surge, that human connection, when we first physically met on that field in Hampshire, as you said, alongside Leanne and Max and Cove. And it's just great vibes, right? Great vibes, great connection, and delighted to be here as your guest today.
Well, the first thing that attracts me to you, I think, Steve, is two of the coolest named children in the world. I don't know if there's a book for cool names. And if there is, let me tell you, we may have looked in the same one, because my son is also called Max. Yeah, I have a Max, but not a Cove, and Cove is a cool name.
Yeah, it's a very special. I mean, all names are special, right? Because we identify them. Whether it's Mark Grimes, whether it's the Pie Eating Man, right, and whether it's the man who gives the best hugs in the world, we identify around names or names that we are given, right? And Cove is very special to us as a family, because it's based on a Cornish cove, and is in honour actually of his big sister, who we got to meet but was too young to survive. And she was very, very young, but we got to hold her for an evening, and we named her Bay, and Cove is a little bay. So that's our nod to Max and Cove's sister, who was kind of born in between both children.
Oh, that's very special. That's really nice. Whereabouts in Cornwall?
Over the years, summer holidays for us has been all about going to Cornwall for a few weeks. So we go to different places, but the boys love the simplicity. For us as a family, especially as Max has been growing up from being very young to where he is now at being 12-year-old, it's close to hospitals, and that's kind of handy for us as well.
I have to say, when you drive into Cornwall, and I always think the colour of the stone changes. And I can always tell when you see footage of either Cornwall, Wales, or the west of Scotland, because the colour of the stone is so beautiful, and the beaches along that coastline sort of reflect that. And what a wonderful place to be able to spend your family holidays. I used to go down as a child to St Ives for a week a year, and those weeks on the beach were very, very special for me.
Yeah, it's creating those magical moments as a family, isn't it? And you're saying about you remember St Ives as a family as a child, and I know that our two boys they're just incredible times, right? And the summer for us, a few weeks in Cornwall, and then a bit of Carfest. It's like perfect
Magic.
time, right? We're very fortunate.
Well, fate would have it. I love, and I'm sure you do, a Cornish pasty, a proper Cornish pasty. And my wife, for Valentine's Day, and today, for those who don't know, because we're recording this on Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
my wife actually got me a Cornish pasty from Cornwall delivered to the house, which I had for my lunch not an hour ago.
Brilliant. I tell you what, it's about some people might like the traditional red roses, right? And a dozen of them, but getting the pie eating man a traditional Cornish pasty with one of those nice handles that you hold onto it and bite into it. Oh,
Stunning.
best gift ever.
So, what would your pie filling choice be, Steve?
Oh, mine would definitely be some steak and probably some blue cheese or something like that. I like those strong flavors.
Back to you. You are from, and I've never heard this. I'm Mark from Scarbados, and you are Steve from Amazingstoke.
Exactly. Amazing steak, Basingstoke. And yeah, we're lucky enough to live in that north part of Hampshire.
Lovely place to live. Very, very green and rolling hills, and very pleasant.
Yeah, it's fab. The kids love it because of their schooling, and we're very lucky because we can get down to the coast easily. There's lots going on in the community, and we can pop into London pretty straightforward. And Carfest just around the corner, so
Yeah.
what's not to like, right?
You don't have the 5.5 hour drive that I have to get down there.
No, that's why you get an extra special hug when we see each other, right?
Right then. So, we met in a field in Carfest, as we've said. Tell me about your family, Steve.
So yeah, our family is so there's myself and Leanne, and we've been we've actually known each other since we were teenagers because we met in something called Basingstoke Gang Show, which is a Scout and Guide theatrical show, and we've been together for about 17 years, and we've got two children that we were talking about, Max and Cove, and we had the little one in between as well, and we're a nice straightforward family who got surrounded by lots of great friends, lots of great community, and enjoy lots of simple pleasures together.
I love kids. I absolutely love. I'm a kid, really. Yeah, adults are alien to me, but yeah, your boys are absolutely fab. Until I put Cove on my shoulders to try and help him see further, and he was not into that. He was not into that.
It's brilliant. No, they're great. They're great characters, and it's fascinating about how wonderful they can be, and also how different they can be. Right, what they're into and stuff, and
Absolutely.
bouncing around and sort of taking in music, and Max might be really wanting to sort of get into sort of like a bit of a project and kind of get into the details, and Cove will be wanting to run around, high five everybody, and say hello.
I obviously send out a questionnaire in advance of these podcasts, and I was really excited to read what you said about you and your lovely wife reconnecting with Leanne, the love of my life. Now, that is an exciting thing for you to tell me about. How exciting that you reconnected with the love of your life.
Well, I tell you what, it's one of those where you talk about pivotal moments, right? And when we were teenagers and into the early 20s, we were part of this community group in Scouts Guides. We used to hang out together. We used to do, like theatre stuff together at Basingstoke Gang Show. But we also go away as groups of mates for weekends. And there's a big group of us. And there was always something a bit special, and but we never quite made it boyfriend and girlfriend back in those days. And a bit sliding doors, there's some near misses and some close encounters and stuff. But then we kind of went our own separate pathways, and we didn't see each other for literally a decade. And Leanne had been working in Germany, she'd been working in America. And then one chance day, I was going up into London and I was at Amazingstoke train station. And who do I bump into on platform three? And Leanne's there. And we kind of get on the train. She's going up to Harley Street for a medical because she's working on cruise ships and for Royal Caribbean. So she was getting ready for her next contract and getting a medical. I was going into London for a BBC event. And we just started chatting. And you were talking about your book and publishing earlier. Leanne was saying to me then, she says, I'd love to write some children's books. She was working on the cruise industry and all the rest of it. And literally 45 minutes just went like that. And we said
Wow.
cheerio, cheerio at Waterloo Station. And I found myself a year or so later out on a holiday, and I'd gone on holiday on my own, and I came back, and something spoke to me. I can only tell you that something spoke to me, and it was as clear as day, Mark, that somebody said to me, Steve, actually in my head, Steve, you've got to get in touch with Leanne. And I hadn't seen her for a decade. I hadn't seen her for about a year or so since that chance train trip. And I thought, God, how am I going to get in touch with her? I remember where she used to live as a kid. And I could go around to her parents' house, and I think I remember, but knocking on the door, that might be a bit embarrassing, especially as a bit of a grown up, although we are all kids, right? But this is like 2006 time, and I thought, I could sign up to Facebook because that was kind of newish at the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I looked up, and there we go. I could see Leanne was there. So I pinged her a message, and pretty instantly, to my delight, she pinged me back. This was Halloween, actually. We talk about Valentine's today, but this was 31st of October. And she said she was not back into UK till January. But the messages became more and more and more. And when she came back in January, we met up a few times. And yeah, things started there. So yeah, the love of my life, we've been together for just over 17 years since.
That's magic. Can I just tell you that behind my ears is currently aching from smiling? I love that story. What a magical thing.
It's something that you just feel with joy, right? And it's funny, you talk about pivotal moments, and it's just so curious, isn't it, about what could have happened, what might happen. And actually, you and I both listen to Chris on the radio, don't we, in the morning a
Yeah.
lot. And this week he's been doing that great thing, which is that sort of kind of did you know at the time, or how he phrased it.
It's who would have thought or something
Who would
like
have
that,
thought?
isn't it?
That's it,
Yeah.
Mark. Who would have thought, right? And one of our who would have thoughts could have been, right? But the first time we actually met each other, Leanne and I, was actually on the 26th of September, 1986, because it's the first rehearsal of the Basingstoke Gang Show in 1987, right? And so we all would have got a letter which says, welcome, you got into Basingstoke Gang Show, come along to the first rehearsal on the 26th of September 1986, right? And as I haven't got that letter, I can't even remember even getting that letter, to be honest. But Leanne's still got her letter. All the years later, in 2009, when we got married, we got married on the 26th of September. So, but the same date that we actually got married, but we had no idea. We didn't plan the wedding to be coincidental. It was she refound that letter just sometime later. But who would have thought?
That's
You know,
magic.
all the way back in 1986 on the 26th of September. Back all the way up to 2009. That's the year and the date that we would have got married. So yeah, it's weird, isn't it, life?
So you've said that you in the gang show with her, and you clearly had a star in your eye for her. The big question is, did she feel the same back then or not?
Well, Mark, next time you see her, right, and I know you're going to ask her this, right? Ask her the question, because just yesterday, she was saying to me, and how patient am I for waiting for you for that long? Now, I'm sure she hams it up. But I also believe that we only get here from what we've experienced before. So whether it's romantic relationships or any pursuit or thing that we get to in life, right? So if we hadn't have done the things earlier, then maybe that time when we did get together wouldn't have been as magical as it is now. Maybe it would have been too early. I think we needed to live these other bits of life first. And
It's a lovely story, and it does show you that the importance of just holding a candle and caring and just remaining the good person that you were as a kid. All of those things. if you were a totally different person, she perhaps might not have been interested in you because you would have changed, but clearly you didn't. It was mad. It's lovely. I love the story. I love those stories. I just love happiness. I love people to be happy.
Thank
So
you.
that's a lovely pivot in your life. Have you had any other big pivots that perhaps you could tell us about?
Yeah, I think, like many people, I think, several pivots, and it's very interesting. And when you shared the podcast and how you wanted to be able to focus in about, people's pivotal moments, and it's just like that's so compelling and so interesting and so intriguing. I'm sure people who are watching and listening to this will kind of be, oh, it's a great searching question, but then things pop, right? And I think one of the other pivotal moments for me, which was all the way back in 2002. And I was lucky enough to be working for the BBC as commercial director. And I was on one of these training programs, and somebody was kind of inspiring me. And for me, after hearing all of the different quotes, and there's an abundance of different great quotes in life, isn't there? But somebody told me this quote, and for me, it's still the best quote in the world, which is the two most important days of your life. It's a Mark Twain quote. The day that you were born and the day you realize why you were born, aka your purpose, right? And this is 2002. And when I heard it, it hit me like a truck. I was like, boom, like that. And it's like, wow, that is so big. I don't know quite what to do with it. And I walked around some grounds. I was in a place just outside of Bath. And that very evening, I wrote down these words. But my purpose, that I wanted to try to live my life every single day, was to enjoy today, or every day, enjoy today while supporting others to succeed in the future. And for me, that was a pivotal moment because life can have challenges. Of course it is. That's what life is. Life is living and the different challenges, but living with purpose over the last pretty much 23 years now, every day, every decision where I put my time, energy or effort, what I say yes to, what I say hell yes, I'm in. Is it going to help live my purpose of enjoy today, like today? Yeah, as soon as you asked, it's like, yeah, of course, hanging out with you, it's going to be a delight, right? It's going to help me enjoy today. And also, does it help me to help other people and support other people to succeed in the future? So yeah, that was a very pivotal moment for me, for sure, big time. I just love it because over the first couple of years after writing it down, and I wrote it down and I still carry it in my wallet now, right? I mean,
Oh,
it's
nice.
laminated, it got battered, but I still carry it just because I feel anchored and connected to it so much. But at first, it was like I was probably a bit more conscious. I was thinking about it. But then over time, it's just you kind of just becomes like a second skin. It's like wearing a good pair of jeans. The older they are, you pull them on, it's like a second skin, and it becomes for me as natural as breathing. So every time there's an opportunity, it's just allows me to kind of make a decision really instinctively based on living with purpose. And life just seems quite simple. Light shoulders of seeking to do the right thing, and it brings so much abundance. I'm very truly grateful to knowing that and living that for so many years.
And I think knowing that and living that and being able to pass it on to your children at an age so that they can take advantage of it. And from what I've met of your boys, they already are. But yeah, that's a special opportunity.
Thank you.
But interestingly, this is how your life and my life are in juxtaposed because I was once told that there are two things that are certain in life.
Mm-hmm.
One, that you will die, and the other, that your flat roof will leak. Also, I carry around something in my wallet that from 1998, which is when I met Shaun Ryder on the beach in Ibiza, and I've got his autograph.
Brilliant. And there's the other thing in your wallet, the contact telephone number for somebody who can fix flat roofs.
Yeah, it should be. It really should be.
I might add that to my wallet, Mark. That's the top tip.
But
So what was it like meeting Shaun Ryder?
Oh, that was one crazy night because we ended up spending the whole night with him in clubbing in Ibiza, and it was when he wasn't very famous. He was sort of between fame. There is actually a story to it.
Go on.
We
Let's
were walking along the beach outside near Cafe Mambo in Ibiza, of group of lads, my friends, and we'd been we played this game when we went on holiday that when we were talking to people, when we were chatting girls up and whatever, we'd make it up that we all worked at a biscuit factory and we all worked on a different biscuit station. So I would be Bournevilles, he would be Jammy Dodgers and the like.
Yeah.
But we were walking along and we heard this man and a woman behind us, and they were talking about which one of us they wanted to have more relations with, if we can put it that way.
Yeah.
And it was the girl talking at first. I like the guy on the end, and we all looked at each other and we heard this Mancunian accent. We thought, oh, here we go. We're in for a bit of a rumble here or something. We turned around and one of the lads went, "It's Shaun Ryder." I'm like, oh God, oh no, we're really in trouble here. And then he said, "Oh well, I'll have the one on the left then." So we turned around and had a laugh and had a chat with them, and that was it. They went on their own way. And then that night we'd been in a few bars, and we ended up going around the bars with them. And there was Shaun, his girlfriend at the time, and Kermit. I'd been taking photographs all night. They're like, oh yeah, great. And this is back in '98 when you had films in your camera, and I was taking photos and we were having a great laugh, and they were saying, "Oh, take photographs of this, Shaun and his girlfriend." And she wrote her name down on this piece of paper, and she started to write their address, and she said, "Can you send me these pictures when you're done?" And as she was halfway through the address, Shaun grabbed her and whispered in her ear and clearly said, "You can't give these people our home address. We don't know who they are." And I've still got it, and it says something Boscombe. They lived clearly in Boscombe somewhere. And I looked it up, and he had lived there. But on the way home, you know how you go home after these nights out when you're in Ibiza, well, when you're 18, 19, and it was like 9:30 in the morning, crawling home, and they were like, "Oh, well, you're twisting my melon, man." All the lads were really excited. And I thought, I've taken a lot of photographs tonight. And I went to the camera, and there was no film in it.
No.
And they literally beat me up on the harbour wall there and then. Only in a friendly way, but they literally took lumps out of me. And there was no film in the camera.
Oh, that is that moment where your stomach.
So the only evidence I have of that night is my friends and the autograph that I've got him with the half-written address.
I tell you what, the best bit though is how great is that story, and it makes it even better because the thing that you felt like you may have needed actually makes the story even better because you have those photos, right? And it's
absolutely. And I go diving. We go scuba diving quite a lot, and in Egypt where we normally go, they refer to me as "No Shark's Mark," because no matter how many times we dive, I've had nearly 100 dives in Egypt, and I've seen one shark, and it was on about the penultimate of my last dives when we were there a couple of years ago. So yeah, no shark's mark. But I decided I used to take my GoPro under every time, and I just thought, what is it that stops me from getting? Every other diver would come, "Oh, we've seen 3 sharks." No, we won't get any because no shark's marks with us. But I stopped taking my camera down for a while not because I thought it was fate, because I don't really believe in luck and fate and those kind of things, but I did think, enjoy these dives through your eyes, a little bit like the Shaun Ryder story. Enjoy them through your eyes and through your memories. Occasionally a camera's good, and it's wonderful to have those memories to look back on, and I do when I come back and I edit a video, but I do make a point now of when I go on a diving holiday, enjoying those dives through my own eyes and making it an experience of my heart and my mind, rather than, when you see these people at shows and they watch the entire concert through their phone held up, rather than living it. Be there. Just be there.
Yeah, that presence, that really truly being, well, a bit like scuba diving. You're saying it's an ultimate immersion, isn't it? You're fully immersed, whether it's at 18, 20, 30 meters down. And that's it, all of the senses, and actually the focus on the breathing and feeling your breath and feeling the buoyancy, and that's it, isn't it? That is, and
it's genuinely my favourite place in the world to be. It's my most peaceful location. Is 25 metres under the water in a tropical sea where because I love wildlife, and to see that plethora of wildlife rather than messing around with your camera because it might not be working, or you're not present, you're not there, and it's breathtaking to be there.
But it's funny you mention it because you remember I was saying earlier about when I came back from being on holiday, and I just had this feeling and this message really coming into my mind saying you must get in touch with Leanne. I was coming back from Egypt, from scuba diving,
Oh,
so
wonderful.
just near Taba, 25
Ah,
degrees, great clarity, great scuba diving, and all the rest of it. It's like, yeah,
I love
funny.
that place. I speak passable Arabic as well. So when we're out there, it's wonderful because the doors that opens, when you're the white ginger guy and you go over and you say like the equivalent of winner winner chicken dinner in Egyptian, and you can see them nearly all fall over.
Brilliant. And Mark, I've seen your moves. I reckon I know that you can like walk like an Egyptian as well, can't you?
I'm not sure about that. Now then, we've got a big subject to get to. We've got two really that we need to cover. The first is probably Max and why Max is different to most other kids.
Well, yeah, that is a big old topic. When Max was first born, delighted that Leanne and I is our first child, and all things were going swimmingly in her first year. And then we discovered, actually, through a series of about 6 weeks, that actually there was something very, very different that Max lives with and has to contend with and kind of cope with for the rest of his life. And all kicked off when he was about 12 months old. And when the kids are starting to learn to stand up on their own and starting to walk, and
Yeah.
he was just standing on the floor in the lounge and holding onto a bit of a sofa and trying to walk, and he just kind of twisted and fell, and he broke his left leg, from his knee to his ankle, kind of broke. And it's like, but he's clearly distressed. We took him to the hospital. They told us what had happened. He'd fractured his leg. And we go, wow, that's incredible. From like almost no height whatsoever, he broke. About 6 weeks later, he was basically doing the same sort of thing. The same thing happened, went over, and he broke his right leg. So same long bone from his knee down to his ankle, and fractured it. And we went in, so we were taking in a child with two fractured legs within 6 weeks of each other. Yeah, and it all
Worst
kicked off.
nightmare.
Worst nightmare, Leanne and I kind of go, what's going on? We don't have a benchmark of other children. Is this normal? It's our first child. And we found ourselves very quickly in the middle of what is called a dual investigation. Quite rightly, people are wanting to understand what's going on here.
Mm.
And the dual investigation is where the police look into you. Is it something around abuse? But also medics are looking into it, saying, is it a medical condition? And both of those things are happening simultaneously. We'll talk about pivotal moments. Oh my goodness, that was for 3.5 days. We were told we're not allowed to take Max out of hospital, that Max may not come home with either of us, that all of the medical imaging, because they imaged all of his body and x-rays and scans and counted things like bruising, because he had bruises on him as well. We had to sign to say anything that we image and we see could be used in a court of law against you, and Max may be taken away from you. And we're going, wow, this is suddenly, like, you talk about scuba diving and immersion. We're immersed in this world we knew nothing about. And it
And
was,
with it being your first child, everything's new when you've got a new child. But when you've got a new child with difficulties that you have no comprehension of, that's even more. It's breathtaking.
well, Max, he was like literally 13 months old at this point after his second fracture. And you just see, when children are distressed and they're hurting, their face blushes up, and you could just see him being distraught. And all you want to do is be there and cradle them, right? But we knew that we were kind of being watched. It was a very weird feeling in the hospital, which is normally caring and nurturing, and we could tell that something was up. And the police were doing what they needed to do, especially in the light of things like baby P. And quite rightly, they need to go and investigate. But family members were interviewed, social services, they were checking medical records. Did we go to certain baby classes? How did we present as parents, and all sorts? And the medics were also looking at their thing, and the police and medics would then convene every evening and talk about what they found. And on day three and a half, thankfully, the lead consultant, she remembered something from her training, and she noticed, the white of the eyes here.
Yeah.
white of the eyes. There's a condition, and if the white of the eyes look more blue in colour, it means it's suggesting that it's got a thin bone, because the blood being blue inside the body is kind of shining through some of the sclera of the white eye. And she
Wow.
noticed that. She said, I wonder if it's this thing called osteogenesis imperfecta, otherwise known as brittle bones. She kind of remembered back to her medical training, and she looked at the back of a skull and x-rayed that part of it, and could see, imagine if you went to a Greek restaurant and you threw plates around and tried to glue them all together again, you'd see all these cracks and stuff. Well, these are not actual fractured cracks. They're almost more like you draw on with a Sharpie on a plate. But there's only two conditions in the world that has all of these things called Wormian lines. And Max presented, and he had they stopped counting at 50. So she went, aha, right, I can see the blue sclera, I can see the Wormian lines. And then they checked for hypermobility, and they could see he was very, very hypermobile. And she said, I think it's osteogenesis imperfecta, it's brittle bones. And that's when we got called in to a side room and were told, well, it was a real bittersweet moment, because we were told we're off the hook as parents. It's not child abuse, it's a working medical condition. However, we believe that your son has got a condition which there is no cure for life, as in there's no cure. And we got referred to Great Ormond Street Hospital, who then took his medical care on from there.
You took the words out of my mouth, really, and I'm sure you've told the story before, but the you deserve to be relieved after that, but you can't be.
No, it's and at that point it's kind of like, oh, you're right, there is a relief, especially for Leanne, who was doing most of her primary caring, right? So there's a relief, even though we knew there was nothing untoward between us, but there is a relief. But then it's a case of, oh my goodness, all of the stuff that we just know that we don't know. What is osteogenesis imperfecta? I live with dyslexia, so it's like even trying to pronounce it, let alone spell it, or trying to put it into Google search or something. It's like, where on earth do you start, right?
I have to say, when I was preparing for this, I nearly tried to learn it, and I thought, I'm just going to go with brittle bones.
Yeah. Well, brittle bones is much easier, I think, and it's commonly known as brittle bones. And we got put in touch with this charity up in Dundee called the Brittle Bone Society. Tiny charity. We've discovered how much great it does, but thankfully it is a tiny charity because it's a very rare condition. And that's why I think the police investigation was going on. Unfortunately, the odds and the stats, so it's more likely to be child abuse than this very rare bone condition, right? So it's we opened up to this new world, this new big family of the Brittle Bone Society, and whether it's the medics, whether it's the people in the charity, led by Patricia Osborne, who's an absolute rock star of a CEO for a charity, or whether it's the parents and the children who you get to meet in this community at different events, we all learn from each other, and it's become the most incredible thing, as well as the support that Max gets from Great Ormond Street Hospital and from his local hospital and the school and the physios and the occupational therapists and the whole multidisciplinary team that he has when he has his infusions and his pain management, because he lives with chronic pain on a daily basis. Sometimes he's in a wheelchair, sometimes not in a wheelchair. Even to stand still like this, his inside of his bones are going like that because of the hypermobility that he's got. And it's like running around all day long without having shock absorbers. So by the end of the day, he's just hurting. But that doesn't stop him. You've met him. He just lives life to the full and wants to crack on and do as much as possible.
Obviously, it's testament to him, but it's testament to you as parents as well, in that, your behaviour rubs off on your children. And clearly, the day that you were relieved from the legal side of things, but obviously you received the bad news about Max's future, you've clearly grabbed that bull by the horns and thought, this was the motivation for me contacting you, because I've seen you eye to eye, and I've seen Leanne eye to eye, and I've seen Max and Cove eye to eye, and I've seen that nothing's going to stop you. So obviously it matters that Max has that condition, but it doesn't matter as well. Nothing's going to stop you.
The Brittle Bone Society have got this mantra, which is unbreakable spirit, and which is a kind of, kind of bit of dark humor in some regards about, unbreakable because of the bones and the fractures. But they have this kind of mantra of unbreakable spirit and oh, I can. So osteogenesis imperfecta, OI, but
Brilliant.
oh, I can. And the mindset of the people in the community is like, oh, I can. And sometimes does it mean that some things are high risk? Yeah. Does it mean that sometimes you might want to think about some moderations, or where you might want to use your energy less here to save it up to do this other stuff that you want to do? Yes, it does. But I think that's the same for a lot of people who live with different conditions. Kind of like, just be mindful about the things that really matter for you. We do know that children are still being taken away from their parents and then put into either care or then adopted because they think it may be abuse rather than brittle bones, for example. And then once you've been adopted, you can't get your children back because it's a legal contract, right? So that still happens now. So the more that we can make some noise, so people could kind of think, medics can kind of go, is it the blue sclera? Is it Wormian lines? Which is quite easy to identify if you know. So the more awareness we can have, families, medics, they can hopefully get some of the support that Max has been fortunate enough to have.
But I mean, you remember me saying earlier on that one of the pivot, the life pivots things that interest me with regard to this podcast is that superheroes walk among us, and Max is clearly a superhero. But the wondrous thing about that is it makes you a superhero, and it makes his mum a superhero, and wonderfully it makes Cove a superhero, because I would imagine that there's quite a lot on Cove's shoulders to tolerate and to perhaps not hold a grudge against Max and all of those things. That's not easy for a young kid to carry. And the Cove I met, certainly, I'm sure he has his moments, but all kids do, but what a superstar he is for being such an ally to you and to Max as well.
Thanks for saying that. Ultimately, we're really lucky that we are surrounded by great people, right? And, when we met, you gave Max and Cove as much equal time as each other, right? And, talk about Cove on your shoulders or having a big hug. But then also you kind of coming up close and personal, having a good conversation with Max. And, the family, the friends, the different events. Max gets to speak at quite a lot of different events, and some quite high profile things, whether it's in the Houses of Parliament with MPs and lords and ladies to try and influence policy. So the condition can be recognised and adults can get care, because right now adults cannot get the same care as kids, even though it's a lifelong condition. So Max uses his voice there, or some of the fun stuff with like Chris Evans on the radio, or Children in Need on the BBC, and loads of great stuff, right? And Cove gets included and involved in that. And Cove is Max's biggest cheerleader, and Max is Cove's biggest cheerleader. And long may that continue. We're very blessed, very grateful to everyone who's part of that upbringing of both of them. Because Leanne and I, we're the parents, but what's the old saying? It takes a village to raise a child, right? And it's the village that raises the children. It's all of the people like yourself and others who show an interest. Like this, it's not just about Max, right? You're equally bringing in Cove, and that's testament to that great balance. So thank you.
There's no thanks involved. They're just his kids, and I love kids. But I think when I met Max, and I met you with Max, as whilst Max was sometimes in a wheelchair, clearly for his comfort and for his safety, but I never felt like he was being treated with kid gloves. He was treated like a child should be treated, and he was given choices that he could make, like any child would be, and he wasn't treated like a fragile egg, and I kind of respected that as well. I would imagine Max, as he gets older, will take a lot from that, because you're not a child forever, are you?
There's a lady called Chris Clark, who was Max's first occupational therapist at Great Ormond Street when he was about 1 year old. She sat with Leanne and I, and she said, look, Max has got this condition. He is going to fracture. He's going to break lots and lots of bones. Kind of that's a given, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing as an occupational therapist, she said, is to be able to break down every activity and never really say, oh, you can't do this. but to create the environment where Max can then choose how much or which elements of different activities what he wants to have a go at, right?
Hmm.
And I think with whether it's Max or whether it's a lot of the children we've got to meet and get to know who've got the same condition, they know how to risk assess because they fracture bones and they break their vertebrae, they break their arms, legs, ribs, all sorts of stuff, right? Dozens
Risk
and dozens.
assessment is like breathing to them. It's a
Risk
necessary part of
assessment
their
is like
day.
breathing. It's
Yeah.
exactly that. So they're kind of thinking, right, okay, I'm prepared to take this risk because I want to live life and I want to enjoy it. It's a bit like when Max was, cycling for one of his charitable events. It's like he was going, I know I'm going to hurt by the end of it because he lives with severe fatigue and it's going to exhaust him because when he pushes down on a pedal, he's hypermobile. So most of the energy is displacing somewhere else, right? So it's going to exhaust him to cycle 26.2 miles. He'd never even done more than 5 miles when he took on the challenge. I mean, he knew that other times he's cycled, he's fallen off and he's broken bones, right? But he risk assessed. So sometimes he wouldn't want to sit in the chair because his wheelchair enables him to preserve energy, or in a crowded environment, it keeps him safe because it's a barrier. And other times he kind of go, right, I'm up for taking the risk, off I go.
When you look at Cove, what can you think of the most recent thing where you've looked at him and you've thought, "Wow, well, that's my boy, that's my Cove." There, have you got examples of that where because he must attend these things with Max, and you must think, "Good lad" on it.
Yeah, well, I'm literally every day. Cove is one of the most caring people. And we talk about presence. He tunes into humans like no other. I mean, his superpower is the kind of that emotionally intelligent child as an 8-year old, right? And he's had it since birth. And
Wow.
he is the sort of person, if he sees somebody is it might be something more obvious, like, for example, Leanne might have a headache or a migraine or something, and he'll just sense it, and then he'll go and get her like a cool pillow or a glass of water, or he tunes in a way which is incredible. The company I'm part of, Expression for Growth, our agency, we train the art of communication and emotional intelligence and stuff. So we train this globally with really cool people from multinationals, but seeing Cove get it. It's like, wow. So he's very caring. He's very emotionally astute. And he's funny as anything. Leanne's point of view, Leanne is, she was a professional dancer, as a teacher, ballroom and Latin, and also a performer. And thankfully, she said, Cove's got her dance skills, not my dance skills. Because bit like you saying about clubbing and Ibiza, Cove feels the rhythm. He feels it literally in his bones. He's got.
Magic. Well, I'm convinced that when you reach fatherhood, because I could dance, I know I could dance, but I'm convinced it's a genetic thing that you lose all rhythm when you become a dad. I'm convinced of
Yeah.
it.
I might have got it prematurely before I was a dad, but I've definitely got it since being a dad.
So it sounds like you've got a future employee in Cove then in your actual day job.
Yeah, he's awesome. It's funny. He's convinced that he wants to be a combination of an undercover cop in his world and also own his own cafe. So he loves role playing his cafe and how he meets his customers and how he greets them and understands where they'd like to sit and what they'd like to eat. And yeah,
Wow, what will he be selling at the cafe? What can we
well,
have?
Well, I think he's going to be asking you, what is your favorite pie? And what is your
Ah,
favorite sort of, knowing a Cornish pasty was a great
yeah.
gift. But he'd be wanting to ask you, what sort of crust do you like? What sort of filling? Which part of a restaurant would you like to sit in? Is it near his kind of made up fireplace near the window? Be asking you all those questions.
When I was a kid, do you remember the restaurant chain Deep Pan Pizza?
Yeah, absolutely.
They made the best pizzas in the world, and now Mark Wogan's home slice is my favorite. But I've been desperately trying to replicate these deep pan pizzas for years. And last weekend, I did it. I did it. I tried one, and it's the first pizza I've ever made from scratch. I said to my wife, "This is it. We've done it. I've done it. I can happily enjoy this pizza that I've made." I'll have to try and teach Cove how to do that.
Well, he would love it. Well, talking about pizza and Mark Wogan, a couple of different events, whether it's at Carfest or whether it's been a gig in the garden, we've had good fortune of hanging out with Mark, as I know you know him very well. And Cove had a special request for the home slice people. If could he have could he have banana on his pizza, right? And one of the great moments of last summer was Mark coming up with one of his massive big home slice boxes and then opening it up in front of Cove and Cove's face kind of going, oh, but absolute sheer delight. So,
You've touched there on Max's sort of involvement in charity. Now, I'd like to touch now on how you and Max got involved with Chris Evans and how that's gone on, but perhaps also where that's led you, because I know in 2023 that's made something quite special for you as well. In the charitable world.
the first sort of introduction was Brittle Bone Society, led by Patricia Osborne, the CEO. She got in touch and said, BBC Children in Need are wanting to have some nominations for some children from our charity, the latest edition of Children in Need. And they're going through a bit of a selection criteria, as you might imagine. Would you be up for Max being considered? And we said, yeah, that'd be fine, no
Did
problem.
they need a good-looking mum and dad?
Well, he might. Thankfully, that was not a prerequisite, right? A good-looking mum, yeah, definitely. But and Max had already done some things for Brittle Bone Society, and it was like we'd already chosen. Leanne and I. It took us quite a while actually, but we chose. Do we want to share our story? Because there's a lot of trauma that we'd experienced from, the investigation and stuff.
I mean, there must be almost PTSD relation. It's not nice.
You are so close to the truth. So we'd made that choice. We said, right, we are prepared. This is what we were prepared to share. And we said, yeah, absolutely. Max is up for that. So BBC sent some researchers around to the house, and they had a chat with Max. And it was an interesting part because at first, because Max has got the mild condition, there's some people who lives with his condition who are only actually about this tall because their vertebrae go, and they look much more obviously like they've got a condition, right? Whereas Max is quite mild, so although he fractures a lot and he lives with chronic pain and all the rest of it, he actually looks fairly what you might classify as normal, whatever normal is. So the researchers were coming around thinking, right, actually, how could we best utilize Max's storytelling? And then they realized how he spoke and how eloquent and confident his voice was, and they thought, aha, we're going to utilize him through Children in Need on the radio. So they're going to use his voice. So he was invited in autumn half term into Radio 2. It was mid-morning. Chris had already gone, so we didn't meet Chris on that day. He just went into the studio and he recorded in Chris's chair, actually, funnily enough.
Nice.
And he felt the presence of Mr. Evans around him, I'm sure. And he did some audio stuff. And then that went out on Chris's show.
They did it like they do on the TV. They gave you a snippet of a child who benefits from money that is from Children in Need, didn't they? That's how he came in.
That's it. And he talks about his red chair and his blue chair and how he gets infusions at Great Ormond Street Hospital and how the Brittle Bone Society gets some support from Children in Need. And Max was one of those voices. And that was all cool. A year later, Chris decides to play the clips again, right? And it all kicked off, and it's like, wow, I was just driving along and you kind of hear your child's voice on the radio.
It's weird.
And he said, well, I wasn't expecting that because that was a year ago. And it was fab. And that's when, first of all, the producers decided to get Max to come and surprise and punk Chris in his own studio.
I remember. I'm gonna when I do put this out, I'm gonna put the link to that in the bottom of the video because it's absolutely fabulous.
Well, Golden Graham, who's the producer at the time, he said this is radio gold when Max was pretending to be at school, and he was on the phone in for, sadly, the late now, Liam Payne, and Max was really in the studio next door in Radio 2, and then Max burst through Studio 6 door, and Chris went, oh my goodness, you're here, Max. And that's the first time they physically met. But Chris had been playing Max out for a year before and that year. And then Max did some calling out of a telephone number for people to dial in and to donate
And
for
Chris
things like
burst into tears, can I just say?
Chris absolutely burst into tears, yeah. And Vassos was there in the background. And it's just incredible. It was a magical moment, absolutely magical moment. And Chris literally engulfed Max,
Yeah.
and that was it. It was great. The producers loved it, and Max was then giving shout outs for the Diner Disco number and to raise money, and so on. And then that led to another event, which was the O2 event, and it was at Christmas time, just when Chris was leaving Radio 2, and the ticket sales were not going so well. And Max said some words, and they sold out within 15 minutes or something.
I remember
And
that. So Max sold out the O2.
yeah, and Chris called it the Chris Max show because it was the 20th of December. And Max came on the stage with Chris and opened the whole of the O2 and did hello London type thing. And Max was 6 years old and he sang some of the first the 12 days of Christmas and all the rest of it. It was like bonkers, and that raised 1.3 million.
Wow.
And the Michael Bublé Diner Disco that raised 2.5 million or something. So different events then carried on, and things that was 6 years ago, and Chris and Max were still doing activities over those
Or,
6 7 years.
or Supermax, as he is actually known by Chris.
So yeah, it's been an incredible thing, and you just kind of think, oh, that was it. That was it. It was a really cool thing and great for everybody involved. And then another thing just pops up, and it's just when it does, it's just incredible.
That then leads to your charitable work, with presumably with Max, but also with the Basingstoke Gang Show and everything else. And that led to something quite special for you.
Go back to my purpose, right? Enjoy today while supporting others to succeed in the future. And over the years, I love being a volunteer. I love being part of our community, and I've been part of Basingstoke Gang Show all the way back to since 1980 as a kid. So I got a lot of benefit from it. And so it was time to give back. So in 2010, I became the chairman for Basingstoke Gang Show, and there's about 75 really cool adult volunteers that give up so much of their time and invest so many of their talents, passions, and skills to
Wow.
create this incredible environment for about 70 children who are scouts and guides who are between about 8 and 18 years old. And we do this great thing, and it's highly regarded, it's multi-award winning, and it's got great productions, but ultimately it gives kids skills for life and great friendships. And I guess I've been doing that role now for about 15 years or so. We have to raise about £75,000 every show. It's pretty tough to do, but we get it done because it creates those great attitudes and moments and memories and experiences for people around us. But at the same time, I've then got my other charitable hat on, which is the Brittle Bone Society, because of driven by the passion of wanting to create awareness so people are aware and they can get help and support, and also to help them raise funds because they are small. There's only 3 people up in Dundee based in that charity, and they serve the country, well, United Kingdom and Ireland. And they have great international connections to try and understand rare bone conditions. And they do all sorts of things for medical research studies to be able to look to have lifelong changing things for the future, as well as creating mobility here and now for people with specialized equipment, which allows people to live a better quality of life. So they do all sorts of great stuff. So over the years, I've decided to get involved and put my time, energy, and effort into it. And when my 50th birthday year was coming up, I thought, right, I'm going to do 12 events in 12 months to raise awareness and funds for the Brittle Bone Society. And we did 12 events in 12 months, and it was just a laugh. It was brilliant. It was hectic. It was exhausting, but it was the most
Wow.
exhilarating year of fundraising that I've ever had. And yeah, we've done some good stuff for the Brittle Bone Society. And unbeknown to me, Patricia, she then spoke with a couple of other people. Leanne was in on it. I didn't have a clue. And spoke to Lady Louisa Portal, who's the president of Basingstoke Scouts. And they put in an application for an honour from, actually at the time, it was Her Majesty. And I didn't know, but I now know that it often takes around about 3 years, if successful, to be able to get an honour from the monarch. But when King Charles became King Charles, on his first birthday honours awards list, that my name was on it, and I kind of got the envelope, got the request. Would I like to accept it? And I was
And you
absolutely
had no
honoured.
idea.
Not a clue. Not until the envelope landed.
Wow.
Yeah, and great people put a lot of effort into that, unbeknown to me, and because of my services to charities. And I feel very honoured. I feel a little bit embarrassed because it's like I was just doing my stuff, but I've also know that talking about it, I've been told since the investiture, when I was given the kind of the medal, as it were, which is a very cool bit of medal, to talk about it because then other people hear these stories, and it's important for people to kind of hear the messages and make their own choices in life as well. So yeah, I felt a little bit like, oh, I'm normally not shy for words, but it's like I'm sure that other people do loads of stuff, and they also deserve getting their recognition as well.
I think good people are humble, but I think they're usually humble about things that they perhaps deserve, and I think certainly you do. But I would like to know if in the build up, do you practice in the mirror like the handshake and oh, thank you very much. How do you go about learning what you're gonna say?
Well, I think one of the good things is because it's all new territory, right? You don't know what you don't know, so you can just go with like blissful ignorance and just a bit like you were saying earlier about just being present and being in the moment and kind of pinch yourself because it's slightly out of body experience when it's an investiture and you are, having the citation being read about you. What I'm really grateful is that Leanne and Max were able to share it with me. We
Nice.
were allowed to have two guests. One there's an age limit as well, so Max was only just old enough. But I was delighted because yes, I might have been the one who was called out for it, but it's a family that it's a family fair. It's Team Edney that make it happen. All the support, all the work that Leanne does. It's very much a team effort for us all.
It's testament to you, it's testament to your family, it's testament to the Brittle Bone Society, it's testament to the gang show. You're right. It's a shared award, but it's quite rightly pinned on your chest.
But thank you. It's a wonderful moment, and it builds more connection. And if that connection and talking about it can then help others more, and it kind of ends up being kind of even more virtuous to help, whether it's the charities that are closest to my heart or other people's charities. If these conversations can help others and give some form of inspiration or connection, or how do you go about doing some fundraising? How do you about doing efficient fundraising or creating awareness with media partners? Any of these conversations, anyone's listening, I'm very happy. Get in touch, and I'm happy to share the small things I've learned so we can all continue to learn together.
It's not an unpleasant thing to ask to be a consultant on, is it? To how to help people to help people.
Exactly. Good people have good conversation and good vibes, right?
That's nice, yeah. But yeah, that is magical. And so the other question is, when the old days when they used to meet the Queen, they used to say it's "ma'am" as in jam. What is it with the King? How do you address the King? Is it sir?
So, yeah, sir, or His Majesty.
Ah,
And there's also the Lord Lieutenant of Hampshire, who is the King's representative of Hampshire, where we live. So it's the protocol is it's really interesting, and the kind of that's the bit of like thinking, oh, I've got to get it right because you could once they get introduced as a certain thing or a certain naming convention, like here is the King's representative of Hampshire, the Lord Lieutenant, for example. I mean, you can call him Lord Lieutenant or you can call him Sir, and it's like, right, trying to remember those things, but actually
yeah.
they're just very cool people who they live with it every day, right? And a few stumbles or trying to do the right thing, I think they're very gracious.
I don't think they're going to pick you up by your belt and sling you out the door for saying the wrong thing, are they?
No, thankfully not.
Well, I think we've covered all that we needed to cover, and I just want to say a massive thank you for one, agreeing to do this, two, volunteering to be my safe first guest, and three, absolutely coming up with the goods because you're such a wonderful person. I love you to bits, and you've not met my wife yet. Hopefully, this year at Carfest, she'll be coming along and you get to meet her. But she's a little bit miffed that she couldn't meet you today because I do talk about you and say what a nice guy you are and what a lovely family you've got. And I can't be more grateful for you joining me on this first edition of Chewing the Crust with the Pie Eating Man. And I genuinely think you're a fab person and a fab like family. So thank you ever so much.
Well, bless you, Mark. Bless you. Bless your wife. And, thank you for all the friendship, the human connection, and thank you for using your voice and your time to be able to share these pivotal moments. Whether it's mine or with others. And I've loved being part of it. So thanks a lot, and I can't wait to see it and get one of those nice big hugs with you, like we enjoy.
I like those. I give those away to anyone who wants one.
Brilliant. It's the gift, eh? And especially when it's like a 40-second hug. It's like one
Oh,
of those
yeah. Yeah.
right in.
Well, can be even longer if you can get Mark Wogan to stand behind with a pizza. I can eat the pizza while I'm hugging at the same time.
It's a date. Look forward to seeing you
Right.
next time.
So everybody, that was Steve Edney. What a guy, I told you. I did warn you, he's a really nice guy and a really interesting chap. Plenty to share with us. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, if you could take the time just to like and subscribe. It's a very new channel and all of those likes and subscribes really do help. Next week, we've got a chap called Andrew Jenkins. You may know him from series 2 of The Traitors. Really nice chap, big mental health advocate, been through trials and tribulations of his own, and we'll talk through those hopefully next week. So thanks for joining us, and I'll see you again. Remember, we can do this together.